Good morning, good afternoon and good day everybody. David here, and today we're going to cover the legendary super soldier, the first Avenger, Captain America. Now Cap is possibly one of my favourites to play as in the game, and arguably one of the strongest. His ability to stack buffs, debuffs, status effects and flow between melee, range and defensive combat is unmatched. In this video we'll cover the stats, gear and playstyle that I use, as well as some general tips, tricks and specific combos that you can take away to become the ultimate super soldier. So let's get into it. Alright, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret here. I'd actually filmed all of this already, but in the process of making this video I got some far better gear. So here we are, covering it again. So a few things have remained the same, other things have changed. So our melee, range and defense are now all over 1,000. As you can see here, might 105, precision 126, proficiency 101 and resilience 109. So we're doing loads of damage and we're just tanking loads of damage, and we're combining these with all of the defense buffs and stuff still that we're getting. With Cap, I like using the Tactigon major artifact, not only boosting the might just a little bit, but it gives you increased damage on enemies affected by any status. Cap is really good at applying statuses and taking advantage of people that are already affected by status damage. So these are the minor artifacts I use. They're just boosting some defense and health stats as well as his precision, just so I can get everything north of 1,000 if I can. But for the gear perks, I like to have frost damage on Cap's melees. I stack that with the Pim particle damage on his shield throws. For those of you that don't know, in this game there is positive and negative status effects, and by stacking the two together you get exponentially increased damage. So cryo is a negative effect and Pim particle is a positive effect. So I like to stack these because the cryo slows enemies down. As you'll see later on, we take advantage of that when it comes to setting up combos and stuff. I got this to drop, which is amazing. Brawler's Vigor extends the duration of Brooklyn Brawler by 2 seconds, and light combo finishes apply gamma radiation. This one I swap out depending on the activity and how I'm feeling, to be honest. And I also have cryo with light attacks and a minus 13% damage reduction when Commander's Call is active, which is that massive defense buff that we get, which is amazing. I also have a piece where it does cryo damage on light attacks and provides 117% increased critical attack damage from block attacks. So all three of those are absolutely incredible. Cap has several attacks that count as block attacks. Basically anything that comes from a parry counts as a block attack. So when you punch your shield and apply the Commander's Call buff, that also counts as a block attack. And the best thing of all is when you block or reflect a enemy projectile, including the Adaptoid's lasers, that counts as a block attack. You can absolutely just melt people with their own attacks. It's ridiculous. We then combine it with our shield that does Pim particle damage on range power attacks, so that's the shield kick. Chance hitting an enemy also gives us 35% chance of getting a damage buff, and 55% chance defeating enemies in their weak point to grant a defense buff. So we're getting damage buffs and defense buffs on top of already having ridiculous damage and defense. That's going to happen all the time because Cap's shield just auto aims for like the head. You get critical attacks just constantly with his shield throws. This chest piece is ridiculous. Extends the duration of Brooklyn Brawler by 2 seconds. So again, that stacks with that one, so we got another 4 seconds of Brooklyn Brawler. And minus 15% damage reduction when Commander's Call buff is active, so that's another minus 15% of just tanking like everything. This build is insane, like you just don't take damage. And then we got the Brooklyn Brawler Blitz, 10% increased damage from Brooklyn Brawler, and increases the charge for that ability by 18%. As you can see, combined with the skills we were using, our Brooklyn Brawler is just active even longer now. we can keep extending it with takedown still, and we keep getting it back before we run out of our previous Brooklyn Brawler buff. Brooklyn Brawler is Captain America's ultimate move, which gives you a damage buff anyway, so you get just an extra 10% increased damage on top of that damage buff, and increases your charge rate for that. The Commander's Call defense buff that we can call on will. We can just tank everything using that, and we can stack that with Rally Cry and all the other defense buffs that we can get, and also we can block any attack and it doesn't take any shield energy away. Like, this build is just filthy. So that's the updates to the armor and stats. Some of his prime skills to look out for is all of his range attacks. If you're a lower level, you want to focus on increasing this column first. So there's a lot of builds out there that just take advantage of his power throw and incorporating the shield kick into that, which is great for like ad clearing. But what I love against single targets is actually this Patriot's throw. So complete a shield throw combo by pressing the right trigger after catching the shield, and you'll do increased damage each time after each throw. So this is great for single target damage, so against bosses and adaptoids and things like that. Another standout perk is his Commander's Call, his heavy intrinsic attack. Press Y whilst blocking, and this not only knocks enemies back but also taunts them and increases your defense again. I believe the only buff in the game that can be called upon just at will, so you can literally do this whenever you like as long as you've got enough shield block energy. It also reduces the cost of blocking attacks by 50% and reduces all damage taken by 15%. Commander's Parry is another great one. This also counts as a block attack, so again we'll be getting that increased damage, but also this applies another buff called the Captain's Charge, and whilst active the buff increases damage and impact of the next light, heavy or range attacks by 10%. So that's another buff that can only be applied in combat, whereas the Commander's Call can be applied literally at any point. Now another heavy attack that we use that we'll be using a lot when we cover the recommended combos later is the Rising Hope attack. Quickly press Y after a shield bash to perform a follow-up attack leaping into the air to juggle an enemy further. The shield bash, you hold Y and it launches enemies into the air, and then you can follow it up with the Rising Hope attack. Now Cap's intrinsic ability is to block with his shield. You can block pretty much any attack in the game if you stack it with certain other perks in the skill tree. You simply just hold right trigger to block. You don't have to be facing the enemy necessarily for it to still block the attacks, and if you block just as an enemy attack goes to hit you, ranged or melee, you can parry it and that will leave the enemies vulnerable to follow-up attacks. You can also reflect incoming projectiles back at the person that fired them, and my particular favourite, you can reflect laser attacks back at any enemy that fires a laser attack. So the rest of the perks we've put into just decreasing the amount of shield block energy required to block attacks. So his support heroic is the Rally Cry. Pressing the left bumper in proximity to enemies makes them marked, and when they are marked they take additional damage from all sources. Then we've added the perk where activating Rally Cry also reduces the incoming damage you take, so that's another defense buff that we're using, and taunts the enemies, so all the enemies are focused on you, so that frees up your teammates to be able to attack at will without worrying about their health and stuff. And because you've got so many defense buffs stacking and you've got your shield ability to block and stuff, you'll just be able to tank it easily. And then I've also increased the critical attack on enemies marked by Rally Cry by 15%, so that's great for the shield throws as well. Now his Assault Heroic Steamroller, press right bumper to instantly target up to 4 enemies and throw the shield with incredible force, and it just ricochets between them, just auto locks everything that's on screen, so you don't have to worry about aiming it, you literally just press the button and let it go. We've increased it so it can target up to 8 enemies, and we've also got a perk where it lets us hold up to 2 charges, so that's potentially up to 16 enemies we could hit with those 2 steamroller attacks. We've also added the perk that gives us a heroic orb each time 2 enemies is defeated by the Steamroller ability. So I like to use the Steamroller ability when going into a room that's full of either turrets or flying enemies or just loads of like weak adds, because it doesn't do incredible damage, but it's great at just clearing out just numbers. So if you've got loads of weaker enemies, clear them out, create loads of heroic orbs for you and your teammates, and if you collect enough orbs you can get your 2 Steamroller attacks back, and you can just keep rinse and repeating that until all the ads have been cleared. Now Captain America's ultimate attack, I believe, is one of the best in the game. Is Brooklyn Brawler. You press left and right bumper at the same time to perform a powerful shield slam that refills intrinsic energy, so your shield block energy is instantly refilled, stuns enemies in their tracks, and after the shield slam all damage and defensive strength is increased. Every light attack combo is changed to sort of a ranged combo attack, including the shield. So again, your damage and your defense is increased. This can stack with the rally cry and also with all the defense buffs we have on our gear. So if you use this with the rally cry, the damage you take is so insignificant. You can just keep storming at enemies, just doing so much DPS and just not caring about any damage you take. It's ridiculous. So we've also added the perks that increase 25% of our health back when we pop the super, and dealing damage whilst the ability is active also restores a small amount of willpower with each hit. We've also extended the duration as long as we can. A very popular setup for this is the CQC specialist. Whilst Brooklyn Brawler is active, takedowns can be performed on critically wounded enemies. What it means by critically wounded is enemies at half health or less. So you could just keep chaining takedowns. And we've also applied the perk that gives us a extended Brooklyn Brawler of 3 seconds for each takedown we do. Then we stack that with performing takedown spawns a heroic orb. So we're just creating loads of orbs, extending our super ability, which is just increasing our damage and our defense, and giving us health back with each hit. It's just insane. Like, you just can't go down once you've got this up. And if you happen to run out of enemies and the super buff runs out, chances are you've already got another one lined up because you've made so many orbs from just chaining takedowns. It's actually insane. So then with the rest of our perks is just boosting either our range attack damage, getting heroic charge back by 1% with each hit of light or heavy attacks, increases the speed and damage of all shield throws by 15%, press right trigger when catching the shield to boost the damage by 15%, and critical attack chance by 35%. This stacks with the shield throw to single target enemies I talked about earlier, so this is really good for against boss enemies. 15% chance to generate a heroic orb when defeating enemies with headshots. Again, it's so easy to get headshots and defeat enemies with headshots, so you'll be making orbs constantly. Recovers 40% shield block energy when performing a takedown, so we can stack this with our Brooklyn Brawler, just keep chaining takedowns, getting heroic orbs back and recovering shield block energy each time. And we've just increased the amount of shield block energy we can have. Now this perk is great. The Commander's Call buff that we can call upon will by blocking and holding the Y button and punching our shield. Not only did that increase our defense, this perk makes it so it lasts an extra 8 seconds, so 18 seconds in total. And then we've got the perk where if we defeat 2 enemies with our parry, it refreshes all of our shield block energy. So that's great for when you're up close and getting into melee fights. Now the Iron Defense perk stacks really well with the Commander's Call ability. Whilst the Captain's Defense buff is active, so the buff we get from performing Commander's Call, blocking attacks drains no energy, and the buff is triggered by just blocking and clicking Y at any point. So you can give yourself a defense buff so you take far less damage on will and block pretty much any attack in the game, and it doesn't cost any shield energy to block those attacks. It's ridiculous, and the buff lasts for 18 seconds. Like, it's insane. Now the overall trick with Cap is to stack as many buffs and debuffs as you can in combat. You'll see I always start a fight with my Commander's Call buff active, and if I have it, I also use my Rally Cry support ability. Cap has so many ways of tanking damage, and so many ways of creating orbs that you really don't need to be concerned about saving your abilities. Another ability Cap has is the ease of combining melee and range attacks in combat. That's why it's always a good idea to have his melee and range status effects as both positive and negative effects, so he can chain lethal combos together and buff his own crit damage without relying on the other heroes. Cap is also great at combining air juggles into his combat. A great combo I use a lot is the heavy uppercut shield throw combo. So I hold the heavy attack button twice, and once I'm in the air with the enemy, I quickly aim and throw my shield for the finisher. This works great with the cryo and pim effects. Melee uppercut freezes the enemy and also slows them down, making it so they fall slower. This makes it easier to follow up with a shield throw, which then does extra damage because of the combined status effects. Often, if you do miss the initial shield throw, the shield gets them on the return flight anyway. So in summary, this build, and Cap in general, is just so badass. Once you get the flow of his combos together and incorporate melees, shield throws, takedowns, and shield blocks smoothly back to back, he feels amazing to use. And with the buffs, debuffs, and support capabilities he has, it makes you feel worthy of the title Super Soldier. Well, that's it for the video, guys. Sorry it's been a long one, but I wanted to cover just everything I could about Cap, so you guys had all the info in one place. If you enjoyed the video, a like is very much appreciated indeed. Feel free to comment below your thoughts on Cap, and if you have a particular favourite build that you're enjoying with him. Remember to subscribe, as not only does it help me out, but it helps the channel grow, and it also makes it so you don't miss out on any future Avengers content. If you would like to hang out with me and my community, come join us on Facebook. I stream there every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, and links are down in the description below. But until next time, I shall love you and leave you. Keep safe, stay positive, and I shall see you all very soon. Bye bye.
I'm done here. Feeling ready to break out some resistance members, Doc?
Hell yeah.